Thanks for sticking away. Glad to stick around. Sorry. I feel a little bit like, you know, in vaudeville, like you're supposed to like have the small act follow, like be before the big act. All right. Anyway, thanks, and I will make this as painless and quick as I can. And I'll speed through some parts that you know. So I was asked to give a little introduction. I started as a ringmaster, and I started a traveling circus, and I brought my circus to 6 countries in Europe, and then a few adventures later was made the director of citywide special events in New York, the New York Parks Department, 26,000 acres, the largest metropolitan park system in America. And we did everything from playground openings to New York City Marathon to major concerts and festivals. I then went on to do my own tours and spectacles, and I founded many arts and cultural programs in New York and other places for companies like Brookfield and Forest City Radnor and other developers and municipalities. There's some pictures from my illustrious Parks Pass, the Dalai Lama, the elephants at Koch, what goes more hand in hand. Festivals I produced. This is actually a festival I produced with Michael Lang, the producer of Woodstock, on the top for Heineken. No one there ever had a drink. And on the bottom, actually for Brookfield, a festival that was called Blues Festival, which is now in its 10th year, which we founded on the waterfront in New York. I've done a bunch of spectacles, the Pope, flying people. Okay, we'll get past that. So the principles in which I work when I go to places is not to go in as a producer. I spend a lifetime producing. I'm no longer that interested in producing. It's not what I do. What I'm trying to do is this type of work in energizing spaces, making places pop. Working somewhat between municipalities, the communities, et cetera, and trying to get a sense of what everyone wants and try and meet everyone in the middle. My first goal is to get into a community and begin to collaborate with other folks. My second goal is not to go in with any cookie cutter plan. I don't walk into a project in Boston, New York, and Providence, and Houston with the same mindset. I try and get a good sense of what's happening on the ground, what the cities have, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what's happened perhaps in the past that could be reinvigorated, things that maybe have been big favorites in the city that need to be reborn, things that are missing, things that can be brought here, small things that can be made bigger, etc. I then try and work with what we'd say in my tribe, the mashpuka, in trying to get a sense of what we're really going for, what should be the tone and tenor of a place. Every place should have a feeling. Some parks should be quiet and contemplative. Some parks should be playgrounds for kids. There's a need to come up with a point of view and a perspective. I-195 has many, many properties, and I'm sure each one of them will not have the same point of view and perspective, but each one should have a tone and tenor. I'll come back to that later as we talk about the current projects. And then there's somewhat of a balance. And wherever you go, there's a big conversation about should everything be local? Should everything be supporting regional artists and regional cultural organizations, regional community organizations? And I think there's a balance between coming up with things that are local and regional and things that come from outside that stimulate excitement and in some cases raise the bar and in some cases create collaboration between local and national and sometimes international artists. I've asked to speak about a few things I've done, just as background. The Lawn-on-Dee was mentioned. Lawn-on-Dee is interesting and relevant to what we're talking about. The Lawn-on-Dee was a 3-acre lot that was utterly trash on the side of the Massachusetts Convention Center on D Street. If you know Boston, very close to Southie, very close to the waterfront, but basically nowhere. The kind of spot where people, the sanitation department, like put their plows in the summer. No one went there. We had to create a destination. In 2 years, we created a destination that looked like this, mostly by coming up with a point of view, which had to do with playfulness and bringing communities together, and by bringing together some of the best people in Boston to bolster the programming. We also created this, which was called Swing Time, which is a commission I did with an architecture and design firm in Boston. Swing Time is a giant interactive light swing. The key thing about this is we needed to have an icon. We needed to have something that would draw people to this space that people needed to come and see. Again, I'll get back to that later, but the point was we made a major commitment, and the Convention Center Authority in the state of Massachusetts made a major commitment to create something like this, which became not only something that drew people from all around Boston, but more around Massachusetts, but has become a national and international story, and Massachusetts Convention Center's largest selling point for renting the space as they move forward. Some more pictures of it. It's lovely. The High Line, which I helped launch, second year of the High Line, they had a parking lot at the northern end of the High Line, where the High Line ended on 31st Street. There's now a massive building there. They were given the opportunity to create sort of pop-up experience. What was important for them was to prove that people would go that far north for the High Line. We created this space under the High Line. You can see some very simple, we hung fluorescent tubes for lights. We rented beer garden picnic tables. We brought in some major art. This was a pretty rough parking lot. We painted stripes on it. And we created a destination that not only became incredibly popular, had lines outside to get in, and helped the High Line in attracting the funding they needed and the political support to then extend the High Line and complete it into its current state to 34th Street. Taking a breath. Intrude was a project that I brought to Boston as part of the Long on Deep project. It's a very simple placemaking sculptural problem. These are inflatables, you can tell they're large white rabbits. It's a very simple project. It's a kind of project that you think, well, who cares? I'll tell you who cares. It's been now in the last 2 years to 4 continents and over 60 cities. We'll hit 70 in a couple of months. Everywhere we go, a project like this has brought literally thousands and thousands of people, generally being held over, etc. And it's one of the things that proves that you can really change a perception of a community and neighborhood in a district with large, simple pieces of public art that are not particularly complicated, but do appeal to everyone, whether they're art and design snobs, whether they're kids and families. If you curate properly, you can bring together a tremendous amount of excitement around public art. I only have this slide up to mention quickly, this was a festival that I was involved in starting, the River to River Festival in New York. It was a collaboration between Brookfield, the local business improvement district in downtown New York, and others, each having put together their own festivals. We combined them into one big festival, frankly, after 9/11. It became a festival that grew to be one of the biggest in the country and is completely self-sustaining on sponsorship. But it started because people were doing bit-by-bit pieces and supporting little festivals that grew. Okay, next, moving right along. So things I like in placemaking are diverse. I mean, I think we can look at projects like this. These are big inflatable beanbags and umbrellas that were manufactured by an arts coalition in San Francisco. They get stored and brought out once a week, and they transform a basic street area into a living room where people come and hang out. Very simple program, changes the perception of the city. Same with this. This was done by an artist named Mark Riegelman in New York. Right? Simple, but they wanted to attract people at lunchtime to come and hang out at this space. What you don't see is they had a bunch of food trucks there, and this transformed that spot and became a real hub for them, with the addition of a bunch of blue boxes, essentially. Right? Nice. I don't know how this got in here. This is gnomes. It's a game. No. This is a project I really love too. This is large-scale public art. You're not seeing this. This is like 20 eggs. But the way this artist works is he comes and he dumps them in a city street in the middle of the night. It all gets set up like this. Obviously, it's done with the city's approval, etc. But once it's done, everyone reads about it. It's a big media hit. Everyone comes to see what's going on. Kids love it. Families love it. And it again puts the district and the zone front and center. This was done recently in Spain. It's just done with various caution tapes, and it created a room and a space in a city park where people were invited to come and talk and converse about various topics, etc. It's very nicely done, very simply executed. This is a larger project, but again, in taking a building and transforming it with art that isn't so simple mural, this building became a destination around the country. Someone raised their hand. Take questions. Like why? Someone's saying, why? This is one of my favorite projects, so I have to put it in here. Okay, it's ambitious. It actually didn't cost them that much money to come to Vienna. As you can see, it's a big building. They have a scaffolding sided with wood. The hammocks were put in. And of course, you can imagine, they took that to the corner of Vienna and made it quite popular. Another simple project that was taken, which was an old gas station area. They basically made red ants leading to it, made a cultural center, and put, I know, people are crazy. But it did its thing, and again, everyone knew instantly where this place was on the map, on the urban map. Another one of my favorite projects, done by an artist named Florentine Hoffman. Some of you may have seen the giant rubber duck that's floated in and out of several harbors around the world. Same artist. Was commissioned by a small neighborhood in the Netherlands. I believe it's outside Eindhoven. And he made this sort of large concrete aardvark, as one would, that became, you know, right? That became, I selected this picture because it's actually sort of higher resolution, but if you look at this online, what you generally see is pictures with millions of children and people all over it. Like you can hardly see the thing because it's swarming with people. Right? And this was, you know, again, he's from this town, I believe. So, you know, this was a local project, as it were. And then to end on smaller things again, you know, there's as many people know, there's a sort of trend of people doing sort of small art interventions around the country, around the world. These are just three I like. This was a nice way of creating a water fountain for kids. Very simple, you know, again, bringing an area to life. A swing that was done off a street pole, really nice, very simple. And this picnic table, which I thought was particularly cool, was also placed as a sort of guerrilla art project. The nice thing about it, to my mind, is it invites a lot of people to come and just sit down together. These kinds of things, this sort of vocabulary of ideas, are the kind of ideas I think work really well as placemaking. I think they break down cultural boundaries. I think they break down demographic boundaries. And I think there's a lot of this kind of energy to make this kind of stuff in your city. Oh, there's one more. I thought I was done with this. This is cool. I mean, it's a selfie wall, essentially. It's a mural with funny things that people stand in front of and take pictures. I know from working with those giant rabbits that they are like the selfie magnet of all time. Like we begin to set them up and people are taking pictures before they're even inflated. You know, it's those kinds of things, again, taking advantage of the social media that really help your case in creating an area that pops and has a lot of buzz. I am rocketing forward, Pete. So here's my thoughts immediately for, you know, as we move forward. You know, obviously working with the region's cultural community, and I say the region because I've kind of gotten the message that it shouldn't be necessarily only Providence, but that it should take into account all of Rhode Island, so we're beginning to look a little wider. You know, we want to create projects. The second point, I want to create projects that invite other projects. You want to do stuff to the point where people say, wow, it's cool, I want to go work down there. Right? So you're not always out there asking, you're laying the groundwork for other people to do it. And frankly, proving to everyone else that good things can happen. We're going to generate partnerships. I don't believe in doing things alone, per se. I think it's great if, you know, if we're going to do, for instance, a public art project in downtown, we would do in conjunction with hopefully at least 2 or 3 other city, community, and arts organizations already existing. So we not only create partnerships so that we take advantage of those organizations' strengths, but we create a collaboration within the space we're working in. Oh, wait, I didn't finish that slide. And then, you know, overall, in the long term, and this won't happen in the short term, but in the long term, you want to create programs and projects that can be built on, so that, you know, in 3 years we're not funding them, or 5 years you're not funding them, so they begin to be able to be funded by whether it's assisted funding by developers, sponsorships, grants, what have you. That you have to invest, but once you've invested, you're investing with an eye to the long term. Whoops, sorry, I went the other way. As you know, we're working with the team from the Shack. I think it's important. I think it's actually incredibly smart to have a food and beverage anchor. For those, I guess everyone does know this, that we're on Lot 22, the parcel downtown. It's a small spot. It actually lends itself nicely to a quick win and a good success, I think. But having the food and beverage there as an anchor where people know and can depend on something always happening there is terrific. You know, to have a people-centric area, you know, that is inviting and comfortable and warm is key. And then, as you know, we're working with their team to create diverse entertainments. And not, you know, and diverse entertainments that will appeal to different, again, ages and demographics. And we're working with the Shack and their team, and I think it's been quite synergistic. We have a very similar perspective on how to do things. So far, so good on our collaboration. And then, you know, in other outside of the Shack's programming, the programming I'm helping them with, I think that the two things I'd love to see us go forward with is one large high visibility art project. And you know, I think there are some good public art projects that are happening here. I think that when I say high visibility, when you look at something like the Florentine Hoffman's Aardvark, or you look at something like the Rabbits, it's something that is truly like everyone's going to talk about it. And some of that doesn't necessarily mean that you're investing $2 million. The swings, for instance, were a $500,000 project. I know we're not going to get there, not this year. But that type of project, I think, will mean a lot to the success of what we're doing. And that project, I would love to see to be pretty much adjacent to or part of the design of the Shack, so that we're really focusing all our energy into that one area. And then I think what we ought to be doing is looking at 3 or 4 projects. And that might be a cultural organization doing a small festival, it might be a family festival, it might be you know, working with the city on some of the things that they're planning, and put out some mini grants, essentially, to again, help support the community in bringing things to our area that will really help both them and us, and work with our team to help bolster those projects, which is very much what we did at the Lawn on D. We brought people there who were doing great work, but we helped them by helping them in their design of their projects and their execution of their projects, and to sort of guarantee a very high level of execution. These are estimated budgets. I know it's a pretty broad range. Feel free to shower us with more money, but I will say that I think that it's, again, I have no idea what the tolerance of budget is at the table, and I mean that quite honestly, but I think it is important to be ambitious. As I said to someone the other day who will remain nameless, who was sort of being a naysayer, to make it small, I think if you're not somewhat ambitious, it's almost not worth doing. Right? If you really want to make a statement, you want people to take notice, then do it right and make people take notice. So that would be my strategy and suggestions at this point for what I would consider the first season. The first season would assumedly be between August, when we hope to open the Shack, and when it gets really too cold to do anything exciting outside. One of the nice things about doing an art project is, as opposed to sort of rolling the dice on the weather and doing an event-based program that could get rained out, you know, an art project that's done well will be there for at least a few months, and will help generate excitement on the long term. I think it's just a better use of the money. And then finally, yeah, I think it's important to sort of think about a new kind of brand and identity for the cultural programs of this organization. You know, the I-195 Redevelopment Commission, Vendor of Innovation, it's like too long. It's not a good, crisp brand. So, I mean, it's a good, crisp brand for some things, but it's not a good, crisp brand for parties on the street, for concerts, for children's festivals. And I think we have some ideas, and you know, it's too early to talk too much about them. But I think we should experiment with a little bit of rebranding and some playfulness, something that gives a different kind of spirit for helping create a feeling and a buzz. And finally, you know, I use the word transform here. Experiment with projects that transform the area. I think transformative projects don't have to be large. You know, Florentine Hoffman's giant aardvark transformed that lot into something completely different. But the woman who created the swing and put it on the lamp pole for 20 bucks also transform the area. I think one of the guide points should be to really make it so that when people come and they see this, they start talking about it, it changes their experience of the space. It changes their experience of the neighborhood and community. In small ways, in big ways, and really helps to make some kind of excitement happen. And I think you're lucky because that's my last slide.